Movie House Cinemas, proud sponsors of Conversations with Gerry Kelly. Treat yourself to a movie. Relax in VIP recliner seating without the VIP price tag. At Cityside, Glengormley, Mackara and Coleraine. Enjoy the show.
Good evening and welcome to Conversations with Gerry Kelly. Now, if you're a fan of daytime television, particularly the word game show Countdown, well then my next guest tonight will be very familiar to you indeed. In the 42-year history of Countdown, Belfast man Colin Murray is only the 7th presenter of this unique, iconic show. Add that together with his love of football and music, and he hasn't got that many free hours left in the week, believe you me. Colin, you are a busy man, aren't you?
I am, but not too busy for you, because I remember when your chat show came on and I was a teenager. Do you know what was different about it? This is going to sound weird. It had a big sponsor. And I'd never seen that for a show from Northern Ireland, right? And I don't mean like Big Jim at Crazy Prices or Sam's Your Man. I won't mention the product, but I think it was a washing up powder.
Probably was.
Yes, right?
Probably
it was a proper national. We were like, well, where's this getting? And it was getting me in the Omagh Road. But I always remember it had a sponsor, and before I even thought of working in radio or TV, that was the thing. I thought, he must be so famous if he's getting free parcel. You
have made a happy man very old, believe you me. Because of the schedule, the hectic schedule you have, do you not get the opportunity to come home that often nowadays?
It's interesting that, because I'm 47 now, and when I became, I would say, an accidental presenter, it's funny because you get into what you do by accident. Any of our generation mainly get into it by accident, because there wasn't this thriving film and TV scene that when there was none. Unless you were a voiceover artist during the Troubles, you know, there wasn't much about. And so my first job was Radio 1, so I moved to London reluctantly and hated it, and then fell in love with it. But I've lived where my job is for the last 23 years, which has always been in England.
So you've lived longer in England than you had in Northern Ireland?
It's just that, literally, like I was thinking, it's roughly now, it's about the tilt, but your home's always your home, it never changes. And weirdly, I find the further away I go, the more, in a weird way, the more vocally passionate you are about it. Because it's a bit like the relationship that you had in your teen years. You don't remember the arguments. You don't remember the grey days. You don't remember the 12-hour shifts at McDonald's 5 days a week when you're on the YTP scheme. You become even more intensely. You become more Northern Irish, I think.
Well, and the accent has never changed. Have you ever thought about? You haven't. Have you ever thought about? I've got to adapt this accent.
If I go back to anyone from East Belfast, they'll tell me it's changed. They will make a point, and have done, from the very minute I moved away. I think it has, but I was so Dundonald that even losing 50% of it's still really Northern Irish. But I try my best not to. My brother, first person in my family to go to uni, he works for a company called Kanos, who went from Lisburn Road to Worldwide, and he's worked for them his whole life. And he moved out to America. And after 6 months, he phones me up, and I was like, what are you doing? He goes, oh, we're just heading down the city centre. And I was like, what are you Graham McDowell me? So I make an effort of not doing it, but Countdown's difficult. Because say I'm reading a tea time teaser, and I go, right, here, you know, it's power out. And I go, so it's power out. I know, they can't understand, so I've started going power out.
Yes.
Because of that.
Is 8 not a problem, the number 8?
I refuse to yield on 8.
Oh, really?
I'll yield on power, but I'm not yielding on 8. Because they can work that out. I'm not saying 7. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I always say that we pronounce our R's. So I think, and Susie Dent, funny enough, who on Countdown, she speaks like 6 languages. She knows every word in the dictionary, but she's not a word snob. And she always says, embrace your dialect, because, for example, we say ye, which is an Old English word. Yeah. So you could argue that we actually have an Old English form in our language. Ye, what about ye? Yeah. We also say R. So when we might not say the OWE, but we say par. ask someone in England to say that, they say power.
Power.
And I go, well, where's your R? I might not, I might swallow the W. Where's your R? You don't pronounce that. So we all have our foibles, and we should celebrate all the languages.
Has the accent ever gone against you in all your broadcasting?
Yes, I would say it's changed so much. When I accidentally ended up in radio, that was from a show called The Session in Northern Ireland,
yes.
where they were specifically looking for a male and female Northern Irish presenter for national radio, for the exact reason that they didn't have our voices. For the exact reason they had no listeners. They had a map up at Radio 1, right, Gerry, and it was, I remember seeing it, and they put it on the wall, and it said, if it's red, that means we're married, and if it's blue, it means we're divorced. And it's audience rating. Northern Ireland was white. It was so blue, it was white. People weren't listening to it here, and that's why they did it, because their main audience was in England, and they wanted to make sure that it was the proper BBC. They had a Welsh show with Hugh Stevens and Bethan Elfin, and yeah. they had Vic and Jill in Scotland, they had Don and Anne Northern Ireland. That was my way in. But when I then moved to Radio 1, that was amazing. That was Chris Moyles was a northern voice who actually his whole family were Irish. So the first person that took me under the wing was Chris Moyles. He took me to a pub in Leeds, and I had to say to his mum, can you repeat that? She's proper thick Irish accent. Oh, Chris, why don't you give me a drink, right? So, but when I started working for 5 Live, then it was still in the shirt and tie era. And there was Eleanor Oldroyd, who's a broadcasting legend. Claire Balding was doing some stuff. Yeah. Very few female voices, and certainly not my accent. So it was all a bit. I'm not sure it was accent, but it was also class. When you weren't university educated, you didn't do the journalist course. I did the YTP scheme at the Ulster Newsletter, and I think I learned a lot from great people, great journalists. But yes, an element of accent for sure, but also I think class. I think that's thankfully. The accent now almost might work in my favour. Yeah. The class thing is still, everyone's still working on that, I think.
But why did you stick to it? Because a lot of people have changed. Why? What was in you that said, no, I'm not changing no matter what, even if my career is going to suffer for it?
I think it's not knowing what a career was, or not. I've never had real ambition, or I've always felt like any time, and I think this is going back to a working class thing, and not being trained in journalism. I was trained, but on the job. Mm-hmm. Not having the bit of paper. I've got 4 GCSEs. Feeling the hand's going to come out of the sky and go, you're done, you're an imposter. So I worked 4 hours longer every day on everything I did, and I still do. Like, I prep Countdown in a way that they go, you don't need to do that much. And I'm like, yes, I do. Like, I've always worked really hard. I know that's not answering your question, but that comes from that fear of like I don't belong here. And that's only recently maybe starting to dissipate a wee bit. Yeah. So that's always been my motivation more than career. And in terms of sticking to what I am, maybe that's just the way I was brought up. I was always told treat everyone the same, you know. I was brought up with that ethic of like, yeah, but I think that comes from being from here though, doesn't it? Well, like, don't think you are anything. Yeah. But the other part of that is don't forget who you are. Yeah. That's the other side of the same coin. Yeah.
But you were a bit of a rebel at school, were you not? Like, you were thrown from one school to the other. You had a bit of a reputation, a bit of a wild child. Hyperactive, sorry.
Miss, what's that? What's that? Why are you doing that? Why are you reading that book? Why are we not reading that book? Can we read that book backwards? Why is that book, why is the cover that blue and not green? I remember I said in one of my first interviews in my mid-20s, I feel like the teachers didn't really get that I could have been what I was, because I was clearly someone that should have worked in the media when I was in the classroom. I was interviewing the teacher. I was literally doing the job I'm doing now. But actually, it's one of those things when you look back, it's a quote that hasn't aged well, because there was 28 kids in our class, and actually what I was doing was distracting the 18, 19, 20 kids who could focus for longer than 5 minutes. Yes. I couldn't focus for more than 5 seconds unless it fascinated me. And English and maths fascinated me. And good history fascinated me. Like American presidents I loved. So I sat in the class like this and learned all about Woodrow Wilson, and I learned all about the Depression, and I learned all about Roosevelt. And English was the thing, and I had a teacher, Miss Piper, was like, this is what you need to do. words is your thing.
Yeah.
And it was, she was right.
Your life changed because you were in one of these exchange programs, Protestant and Catholics taken away. And
Yes.
They took, you were on one of those schemes for fortnight, and you were in Canada.
I was, Toronto.
Toronto, and that
Yes.
opened your eyes, did it?
Yes, the first thing that happened was a whole load of Protestants arrived. Protestants, I mean, whatever anyone actually was where we grew up. A whole load of Protestants arrived from East Belfast. A whole load of Catholics arrived from Dublin. And I can't swear in this, so I'll leave the swear words out. But literally, I remember one of the first things that one of the guys from Dublin said, I think there was about 15 of us from each, went, why did they invite us? And everyone burst out laughing. We were all 18. We were just interested in kissing the girls or the boys. We were interested in having the beer, which you couldn't do because the drinking age was 21 there. Everyone was we were just teenagers. We went to gigs. It was life exploded the Technicolor to me there because we were dropped into the gay district of Toronto to live. It had every culture, every religion, every colour, every creed, all in the one street. And that's something that we didn't have here growing up.
You described it, and I wrote it down. You said that you described it like it was like that bit in The Wizard of Oz when everything goes from black and white to colour. Yep.
So my home, I love. And that's all Dorothy was doing, trying to get home. I'm probably still trying to work my way home. But the burst of Technicolor and learning about that tolerance and that every walk of life.
Did you go there with any bias, any intolerance?
I think Carl Frampton summed it up perfectly, and he said, you grow up running to danger when you're a kid. So if you grow up in a council estate on the edge of Bolton, whatever the thing is there, you'll run towards. And I think that was the same with all us. You'd run towards whatever. Is there trouble down there? We'll go towards it. You know, can we go out drinking down there? You run towards it. So I think we all grew up with a bias in our area. Yeah. Although I think I was a bit lucky in the house that it wasn't really there. It was very like, my mum used to say weird stuff. Like, if anyone asks what religion you are, say you're a Buddhist. I'm like, what's a Buddhist? But yeah, so it was never drummed down my throat at home. Right. We weren't a religious family at all. Right.
But you did.
No one was. My granddad was the first atheist I ever knew. I never heard the word until my granddad would never stop talking about it. And you know, my mum or my stepdad would be like, "Will you shut up?" But he'd be like, let me tell you, and he'd tell us all about it. So we didn't have a religious household. Okay. But at school, obviously, there was, you know what it was like growing up during the Troubles, everyone knows. You were not only migrating towards one side of a community, but then within that it was separated. And I remember the first kid that went to an integrated school where I was living at the time, because I moved to Newton Ards for 3 years, and then we moved back to Dundonald when my granddad died. I always put details in the stories you don't need like that, right? I think I must have learned it from Hugo Duncan, meeting him. I tell you bits you don't need to know. You know what my granddad know. And this kid went, and it was Lagan College, and he came back, and we were all like, what was it like? And he goes, oh, it was brilliant. We were like, why? What was the best thing about it? He went, you didn't need to pick teams to play football at lunchtime. We were like, well, what do you mean? Because you always lost a vital 5 minutes picking teams in your lunch break. And he went, Rangers versus Celtic.
Ready-made.
He said it was the best. That was his only thing he brought back from day one at that school.
You wanted out of Northern Ireland quickly, did you? Did you have a plan?
No, I had no plan. I think we all think we get to 18 or 21 and we're growing up, and then I know I got to 30 and then went, oh right, I'm growing up now. And then I got to 40 and went, oh actually I'm growing up. And I feel like only in my 40s I've kind of even thought about that. I've no qualifications, YTP scheme, accidentally on Radio 1. So in a couple of years I went from thinking I'm putting on gigs, I'm writing, we used to write for the same newspaper.
That's right.
We did a column, both of us.
That's right.
And I found out recently you get paid double what I get paid, by the way. And there was never, the plan was not to go back to McDonald's. That's always been my plan. Not that they were some of the happiest years of my life, but I love mates in there I've still got, but like that's always been my plan, is just to try and stay in the business for longer than 5 years. And here I am 23 years later doing the only show I ever wanted to do.
But could you imagine that young man working in McDonald's all those years ago would have ended up where you are today?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I remember being asked did I want a full-time job in East Belfast News, which was a free newspaper that used to be handed out there. And that was when I got accepted to go on that course in Canada, and I had to choose between the two. You know those sliding doors moments where you go, no, I want to have that. I'm so glad I did that. Radio 1 was by accident. I'm an accidental presenter. So, no, of course I can't imagine it. I imagined working in HMV, probably, putting on gigs, which would have been great. But, yeah. But I think it means I've never cared for anything other than the show I've been doing. And that sounds really disingenuous, but it's true. Like, I only care about the person watching or listening. I don't care about the industry at all.
Well,
I only care about the people listening or watching.
Your love for radio is out there.
Yeah.
But you were offered a job on television on the Match of the Day 2.
Yes.
To replace Adrian Childs.
Yeah.
Now, you're a fanatic footballer.
Yeah.
That was the dream job, surely. That was a dream come true.
Thought it was.
And yet I've read, and you can tell me whether it's true or not, that you said it was 3 of the most miserable years of your life.
Of my career.
Of your career?
Yeah. I've had much miserable parts of my life. But of my career, yes, because I was dragged into the business, and Radio 1 was such a cocoon. It was so, like, that we had such a golden generation. Like, Joe Wiley was like my mum. Do you know what I mean? Like, Steve Lamacq was like my dad, even though I was, you know, I was doing the regional version of his show, so he didn't have that show anymore. He took me under his wing. Joe Wiley was like my mum. Still to this day, if I see her, we're just like straight, you know, hugs. Scott Mills was just the best mucker to mess about with. Chris Moyles brought me up to see his family. Edith was, to this day, is one of my ultimate loved ones. So I was so lucky. And then the first time I worked in our industry was properly moving into TV and stuff. And my Match of the Day too, there was Soccer AM and stuff, but there wasn't a young guy without a tie on, or at least a shirt. Even Adrian Childs, it was a bit more laid back, but Adrian was a bit older and wiser. I love Adrian as well. And it was within the remit of what they did. And all of a sudden there was this kid going, and a lot of the time wrongly, but I would go, well, why would he track back there? Surely if he tracks back there, you know. My mate, though, he's a United fan, and he says you're talking rubbish because he just thinks the manager's a bleep head or whatever, and it hadn't happened. I don't think being the first is ever that good an idea.
That's true.
And I feel like I wasn't prepared for that breakthrough in social media at the time, and opening my phone and a load of people going, again, I can't swear. How many times have I said that? A lot of people going, who you know, this about you, that about you, I can't understand you, which at that stage was still very commonplace. This accent grates on me. Like, I got that the other day for the first time in years. That doesn't happen anymore, relating back to what you said before. Yeah. It was still there. And I feel like I was a fish out of water. I'll add this, though, as well. I don't think I was that good at it.
Really?
I genuinely don't. There's a journalist called John Nicholson, and he's a great football journalist, and he wrote a lovely piece called A Love Letter To. He writes this great piece, and he looked back, I think it was 15 years later or 12 years later, and he went, this guy was good. He was just the first, and blah, blah, blah.
And that's...
I only half agree with that, because I actually don't think I was that good at it.
Do you think you're good now?
I think I'm good at Countdown, because it's unscripted, it's 5 days a week, and it's about the audience. Does that sound like radio to you, Gerry? I'm doing a radio show on TV.
I have never met a presenter that is so enthusiastic, and that enthusiasm is so infectious it comes across the screen. You're doing a Countdown.
Love it.
This is the dream job for you.
Yep. So never ever. So I had this agent called Vivian. The reason why I went to her, because when you get in this business, they go, you need an agent, and you go, what's that? This is what they do, and they negotiate this, and then you give them 15% of your money. And you have to do all that. You have no choice. And then your mates back home go, look at you with an agent. You're like, I have to get one. What you would do? Anyway, this woman, Vivian, was my agent. Lovely. I still talk to her the odd time now. She looked after Richard Whiteley. And when I found out she looked after Richard Whiteley and David Jason, I was like, I can't believe she wants to look after me. I always loved him. I thought he was brilliant.
Richard Whiteley?
Yes.
He was the original.
He was the original, the GOAT. Because when I was a kid, you'd come home and you'd choose the cartoons of that. You'd be plunked in front of the TV, and he was so, like, all the jokes were on him, and he was always laughing and giggling, and I used to love him so much. And I love Countdown. I love the mental arithmetic, and I love the English, and it goes back to being hyper. Put me down front of something that's got 30-second rounds.
And you're there.
ING, ERS, how many 50s are in 300? Loved all that, loved all that. And I met Susie Dent when I started Radio 1. All of a sudden, I went from like I said, you're on TV and I'm going, he must be a superstar. All of a sudden, I'm at Radio 1 and Madonna's sitting in the lounge. But Snoop Dogg checked his emails in our office beside me. Like, and all the time I'm like, treat everyone the same, treat everybody the same. But that was a massive change to go into that environment where there was all those people about and all that type of stuff. And I met Susie Dent, who has been in Dictionary all those years, and she loves telling this story. She says, the first time you ever met me, you come up to me and we went, hello, I'm Colin Murray, I want to present Countdown one day. And I can't remember saying it to her, but she tells me this story, and I'm like, it was the only thing I ever thought in my wildest dreams I could do. So I did Dictionary Corner for like 10, 15 years. I can tell you, like, I've got about another, as we're talking now, about another 55 shows to do, and I overtake Jeff Stelling. So I'll become the third longest ever out of the 7.
Name the 7, name the other 6.
Well, the top...
Whiteley's
the top, and then Nick Hure's the second longest, then Jeff Stelling, then me, then you get Des O'Connor, and you've got Anne Robinson.
Des O'Connor,
yes, everyone always forgets about Des O'Connor, presenting it for a couple of years. And am I missing one?
No, I don't think so.
I think I got them all, didn't
I? Are you now a celebrity? Do you see yourself as a celebrity?
No, because I get the bus. It's a great quote by Ronnie Barker, who I moved to a place called Pinner, where he used to live. And he used to, not when I was there, but they used to tell me, 2 people from Pinner, right? Well, loads, the centre from Pinner. You know, that's going back, the young people, like, what are you talking about? There's a snooker player from there as well. But it was mainly Elton John. They say Watford, but he's actually from Pinner. And Ronnie Barker had an antique shop there, and he used to work out the back, fixing things and putting stuff up. And I read this thing by him right near the beginning of my career, and he was asked, I think it might have been his autobiography, or it was in an interview, I can't remember, and they said to him, well, how you say you're not famous? And he went, no, and they went, look, you're the most recognisable face, the thick glasses. And he said, famous isn't getting the bus. And I was, what a great quote, and he's absolutely right. I genuinely believe that you have to put yourself behind the velvet rope to be famous, unless you're a Premier League footballer or a mega star, not at my low level. If I don't go to certain restaurants or I don't go to premieres, I don't talk about my private life. You know that, right? No, I won't talk about any of it. And it's fine. What a privilege it is. People know me only if they've heard what I've done or watched what I've done. They don't know me because I've said what I've said or been involved in this or, or had a romantic love triangle, which I have. I just haven't publicised it. No, I haven't. But so I go to fill up my, I'm driving back from Countdown and I go to fill my car up at a petrol station and somebody goes, happened today, I got up this morning and I walked around the dock area and then I went into the shop because I'd forgot deodorant. And the guy goes to me, some team miss Liverpool right now. What a privilege. How does he know I'm a Liverpool fan? Then he doesn't know the next guy's a Liverpool fan. Yes. What a privilege that somebody doesn't need to know me to make me feel good. That's the best thing about it is genuinely the truth, is that's what being in the public eye means to me. Is somebody comes up to me and goes, especially with late night radio, they come up and go, I was going through a hard time, or I wasn't sleeping, or I was driving in the nights, I was coming back from the hospital. Yes. That's late night radio. So I'm infatuated by the audience and who they are. That's the privilege of what we do. I turned up here today with my dog, and you couldn't get me out of the makeup room.
I know we couldn't.
And sitting over there, we've got someone who wants to work in motorsport as a presenter, somebody who wants to be in radio, and I'm like, really? Well, you're young and you want to work in radio? That's what I like.
Well, for the young students who are around it, watch this man, because this is the man that has done it all. It has been a great pleasure talking to you. Yes, I'm afraid.
Oh, I talk some nonsense.
You do talk some nonsense. Indeed you do not, Colin. It was a joy talking to you.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you.
Colin, thanks a million. Thanks a million.
This new year, get ready for an exciting new series that brings you closer to the voices that shape our community. Join me as I sit down with beloved local figures from sport to media, from activists to everyday heroes. We'll journey into their lives, revealing the passions and the inspirations that drive them. Made with the help of our talented students at Belfast Metropolitan College, the next generation of media professionals. So who's talking? Join me to find out.
Heading to the North Coast, the Jet Centre in Coleraine offers entertainment for everyone. There's an 8-screen movie house cinema with all the best movies, 10-pin bowling, a massive arcade, soft play for the wee ones. Outdoors, there's a mini fun park and gem mining, plus an 18-hole floodlit mini golf course. Rain or shine, there's something for everyone here at the Jet Centre. Find out more at thejetcentre.co.uk.